Hi everybody, welcome back to a simple Bible breakdown. As you can see, I'm no longer in my basement, so we were going to change the name there a little bit. And of course, it's been a little while since I've been able to do a video, and that's for several reasons. One, I updated my website, and that would be middleism.org. So you can go there and look at the basics. I try to take out a lot of the extra information, just kept it real simple, and linked it with my YouTube channel so that you can actually integrate that videos with what I have there, and we'll kind of put it together there. And then secondly, I've also been adding to my blog on that middleism.org, and you can read different things. And it has been a little while since I've been there, and I've been basically putting back some of the things that were lost when I updated the whole format of everything. So it's been a little bit slow getting it back there. And the main reason for that is I've been preoccupied with two other types of programs or projects, I should say. And the first one is with Elijah'sBones.com. It is a blog and store so that you can go there and check out different products and tees and hoodies and things like that that I am custom designing and putting up there. Christmas right now is the main theme, of course. You can go there and look up those things that I've designed, and if anything catches your fancy, of course, you can buy it through that website. But the main goal, of course, of Elisha's Bones is to get resurrection life back into people's families' homes, meaning it's good books that we should be reading. It is movies, music, it's reviews and blogs and all of those things, and to deal with issues with the church that up to date. So you can go there and check that out at any time. Meanwhile, I got my cat on my lap here, and he wants to be scratched, so I've got to do that while I'm doing this, or get scratched up myself. The other thing that I've been working on is I am finishing up in the next 3 days or so my final examinations for my thesis. THM degree is actually what it is. So the thesis has all been done. That's been turned in. So that, like I said before, might be published in here December, but more likely into January. And I'll have to see how that happens. And then following up close after that is my book that I've expounded on the thesis and put out a complete position type of paper in a book. Now, getting today's themes, I'm titling this The Wild Claims of Preterism. And I want to do this kind of generally because the issue is that preterism has branched out so badly now and divided so badly with the IBV and the CBV view, which is the individual body view that Ed Stevens in his crack claims that there was a literal rapture and it all happened there. So everything that happened after 70 AD and what the church recorded is all fake, not true. And he seeks to change all the dates of everything. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But the main issue is that preterism people are coming on and making so many weird and wired up claims. Steve Basden is just talking about the blood of Jesus. It's just unbelievable what's coming out and how they're perverting everything. And the whole problem, of course, is trying to turn it all into spiritual. And I have the debate coming up with Joel Sexton on January 3rd and 4th, and we're going to be discussing about the nature of the coming. And I use the foundation of that was Hebrews 9:28. And I'm not going to get much more, and I'm going to let him dig his own hole on all that because he's starting to paste things on the middle. A Facebook page that I created was Middlesome Debate. I'll forget the exact title of it, but it's a debate page for that. So he's posting things up there, and I'm not responding to anything. I'm not going to get into it. One, haven't had time, but of course that'll come much later. So when I'm going through these Facebook pages of preterism and full preterism, on one of my YouTube channels, there's a Preterism 777 who comes on and tells me that I have no clue as to what preterism is. The only thing I can think of is that he is maybe a classic historic preterist in that sense, which is different than a full preterism. But it just the things that people are claiming and saying, it's blowing my mind. So I'm not trying to go back and do a complete refutation of everything that I see. It's just impossible at this point. Or to respond to everybody and to respond to everything that's absolutely crazy. But let me give you just a couple ideas of some of these wild claims. David Gates, who does the Predators Network, I was on with him a few weeks ago debating the cessation of the gifts and talking about that. He doesn't join the Facebook groups. He has people that come on there, but, people like Mark Glenn, who comes on and disagrees, but he starts in with the name calling as like Jerry Bowers and some of the others. They just want to call me putz and idiot and all kinds of things. But here's what David put up not too recently. When one discovers the truth of preterism, they've unlocked the key to help save over a third of the lost people in the world. As if the preterism is the answer to how people are saved. How is that going to help 1/3 of the people that are lost in this world be saved? I can't figure that one out for the life of me, but it's just a plain old arrogant statement, because it is the truth of the gospel that brings people, and it's not 1/3 of the lost, it's 100% of the lost can be saved through the gospel message, not through the message of preterism. The message of preterism is absolutely a mess, confusing, and drops the ball on every level. But the issues that become apparent in preterism are significant. And when a lie is invented to justify a position, that lie is spread until everyone believes it. Now, if you say it's true long enough, obviously what happens is enough people will start to believe it, and I'm sorry, but they're just not smart enough to figure out it's a lie for themselves. So knowing the truth to begin with is what prevents the spread of lies. And this protection from the lies begins with what this begins with. But sadly, this is missing. It's like a lot of times I'm talking to a first-year student in origami trying to comprehend Einstein. Predators just don't have the same point of reference. But so let me go over a few of these lies real fast. And I'm clicking on my notes right here. Okay. Frank Speer, I'm going to put his thing down below there a little bit. He wrote, my right click on here, heaven and earth in the New Testament refers to the Old and New Covenant. Now this is something that people bring up all the time. And what we're talking about, of course, is like in 1 Peter, heavens and earth that existed long ago. Well, he's trying to bring up that's all talking about the Old Covenant. So anytime that the New Testament talks about heavens and earth, it refers to the Old Covenant, and the New Jerusalem, of course, is the New Covenant. But then, of course, he can't identify what the curse was that we're supposed to be restored from. He claims the kingdom was handed over to the Father in AD 70, and he makes all kinds of statements that logically and theologically, if they were to actually stop and look at and examine, they would find out that completely inconsistent. For example, to say that Jesus handed over the kingdom over to God from 1 Corinthians 15, well, if that's true, then Christ is no more operating as he is right now as a mediator between God and men. Then that mediation stops. And what you're saying is if there's no mediator, then how are people being brought to the Lord if he's not there still doing the same thing that he was doing before as part of his kingdom? And there's other implications that are real bad. As I brought up before, Ed Stevens is insisting that Barnabas was written before AD 70. Yet Barnabas speaks of Jerusalem's destruction, and every scholar places this writing after AD 70 but him. The epistle to Barnabas was almost included in the original canon because Barnabas was considered an apostle. So Ed recognized this, but he's got to take everything and put it back before 70 AD. Of course, wow, that's the real problem. For example, John's exile and release, he wants to put that at about 57, 62 or so. And here's the thing. It's well documented in historian records that if Caesar, and Nero was Caesar at that time, if he put and banished people to a far-off country, those people were not brought back until after he died. You've got Gentry and everybody else claiming and saying the same thing. There's no way that John would have been released from the island of Patmos. And I think this is what Ed misses, is that the Bible's Revelation, it says, I, John, was on the island of Patmos, not I am on it. There's a future tense to what he's saying, or past tense, excuse me. There was a past tense to what he was talking about. So if Nero banished him, then he was released after Nero's death in 69. The timeline, of course, is not going to work. There's no way for it to. And the whole things that Ed brings up there is inconsistent. John was in Asia, died in Ephesus, and that's where his tomb is at today. And there's no scholar, no Christian scholar that puts John dying before AD 70. He would be the only one who's doing that. And we're talking about Catholic scholars for 2,000 years who've looked at all the evidence, all the stories, and all the implications of there, and they all tell you that John lived after, all the testimony of people, John lived after AD 70. But Ed wants to change that. In Don Preston's, let's see if I get this now correct. In Don Preston's debate with Ed, here's what he says. It is true that the fellowship between man on earth and God in heaven is what was lost through the sin of Adam. No, it wasn't, because God continued to talk with Adam. He even continued to talk with Cain and Abel and others. The fellowship was never broken, and it wasn't about man on earth and God in heaven. If you remember correctly, that God walked with Adam in the cool of the day. They had a fellowship where they looked at each other and talked with each other face to face. That is what was lost through the sin of Adam, because the guilt of sin, remember Jeremiah, Lord, I can't come before you. I mean, I'm a man of uncomfortable lips. When we are faced as human person with the guilt of our sin, and we come into the presence of God, our guilt is multiplied extremely, and God's glory is so magnificent that we can't stand in front of him. And that's why there's a separation now between God and man. But the fellowship didn't. Now it was our spirit who becomes guilty and bears that. There's that separation. It's fallen. Our spirit is fallen. We are under, well, I'm trying not to be too theological here, but there's just no way this is going to be true. Christ, that God is in heaven. Wow, okay. So Christ returned in AD 70. That is the biggest lie that's being told. And of course, that's based on other things, and I have dealt with that in the other videos. They want you to believe his body changed after he ascended, which there's no scripture that says that. Yet they try to twist things to say it does. The resurrection of the dead is out of Hades, not from out of the grave. Yet Matthew 27, 52, 53, every example of a resurrection is a body coming out of the grave. They deny that 1 Corinthians 15 is talking about a body out of the grave. For those who are asleep, I mean, the language that Paul's used there is nothing about the body of Christ or some kind of other spiritual body or anything. And then even they get that part right. A spiritual body is a body that is designed, made, and created from God, from heaven, not made man on earth. And so we think about it. Paul said that they all ate of the spiritual food. What was the spiritual food that they ate in the wilderness? Well, it was manna, and it came from God. God had it rain every night, manna, and they gathered it up in the morning, and that's what they ate. That's why it's called a spiritual food, because it comes from that other realm. It comes directly from God. It's not man-made. And that's what all that spiritual means. Body is always physical, and to argue that somehow a body is immaterial, that doesn't work, because a body houses the spirit of the soul. So what are you going to say is housing, what kind of spirit is housing a body or a soul? Or the spirit of man? And see, that's just a contradiction in terms. Joel Sexton, who wants to debate me, he put up, if one of Israel's promises is consummated at the Paris, then all are, but they're not yet. And that's simply wrong. All of his promises can't be consummated at the Paris. there's just a lot of other things that go on, and there's a whole timeline how can you sit there and say everything happened all at once? It's just impossible to hold to. He says it is imperative and vital to understand this concept if one is to understand eschatology, i.e. Bible prophecy, and especially Israel's promises in the second coming. The promises are not given out in piecemeal. If one is fulfilled at the day of the Lord, then by prophetic necessity, all the covenants and promises are to be filled at the same time. And that's just simply not true. It's interesting how many preterists spend so much time refuting other preterists. But the only thing they agree on is that Jesus returned in 70. It's gotten pretty bad. Mark Glenn, Jerry Bowers, going at it again. You're arguing with an idiot. Thinks Christ still has a flesh and bone body, but lives in a spirit world with his Father, which is spirit. Wow, Mark Glenn wants to warn Jerry Bowers that I'm an idiot. And so automatically it just goes to name calling him. And not once did I call people names, but I'm the arrogant one because I have an education and all of that. So it's gotten so bad that I have pulled back in a lot of ways and have just not responded to the idiocy. So after this point, I'm looking for things that will actually be helpful and beneficial, points that will be make a difference. So I will be focusing on them from after my testing is all done, and give a much shorter videos and make it a lot easier. And we'll go through things. So in the comments down below, if you want to subscribe, go ahead and put things that you're interested in hearing about from me. And I get it. I know there are a lot of people out there on YouTube and coming up with all kinds of things and subtle things that, and I would love to respond to everything, but I just can't. And what makes me different? Well, the only thing I can say in my defense is that a little bit of an education and theology, systematic theology is what puts the pieces together correctly. And I'm just not seeing it from these people that they're able to put things together correctly and deal with it, even in short little things. So I will be working on that and doing the best I can to keep things brief and simple and short for y'all. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and again, remember, go and check out for the blog and clicking through the links there on some ideas for Amazon.com from products for Christmas. I put some things that I've designed up there for Christmas, and have to do it soon if you want to get it for a gift before. So that's ElijahBones.com, and you can check out my new website, middleism.org. And Facebook, of course, you'll find me there with hanging out on the Facebook pages. I read everything, so if you address something to me, I will catch it. And that is anything to do with preterism debate and all that. So if you look it up, you'll find me. So, yep, thanks again for watching, and you guys have a great night.